Hello and welcome to the Daily Fantasy 5 for this Friday, August 9th. We're on episode 169, and we are bringing you the 5 things you need to know every day in the world of fantasy sports. My name is Scott Grierson. I'm your host, and we are today talking about some news from the NFL, from Major League Baseball, and then we're previewing the Vikings in our continuation of the NFL Countdown Extravaganza. We have 26 days left until football officially begins on September 5th. And yes, today we are talking about the Vikings. We're going to answer the three big questions, and then we will go through and give you some fantasy notes and your Vegas over-unders. So we'll get to all that after a word from our sponsor, www.mathradio.com, where you can pick up an online math course for as little as $9.99. It'll help your kids in school by giving them better grades. It'll help them score higher on exams, and even, in some cases, help them get into college if you take one of the SAT math prep courses. Once again, that is www.mathradio.com. You can get a 30-day money-back guarantee on your course. The first time you buy, it's only $9.99. www.mathradio.com. All right. First up, the Lions, Detroit Lions. Jermaine Kearse broke his leg yesterday. Not good for the Lions. Last year for the Jets, he had 37 receptions and 321 yards. Probably not the option, but it will give them a little bit less depth at wide receiver. They were already a little bit thin in that group. 49 defensive lineman Bosa. He has an ankle sprain. They say it's not too serious, and he'll be ready for the start of the season. If Bosa is going to be hurt a lot of this year, that's definitely going to hurt their defense. They're counting on the number 2 pick to go out there and dominate this year. If that doesn't happen, that defensive line is not going to be as good, and that could only help the offense. The worse the defense is, the better the offense is going to be in San Francisco. I don't think the group is actually going to be that good on defense, so that's why I have the guys from San Francisco rated a little bit higher than most do. Moving on to Major League Baseball, Red Sox, Price, their starting pitcher, all-star, future Hall of Famer. He's heading to the injury list with a cyst in his wrist. I don't know, some weird thing in his wrist. Anyway, he has a 4.36 ERA this year with a 1.32 WHIP. He does have 126 strikeouts in only 105 innings, so those other numbers don't look that good. I do like the strikeout rate. So when he comes back, even right now, might be a good time to try to trade for David Price, as Price owners might be a little bit fed up with him, especially with him going on the IL. It doesn't seem like anything major. Might be a good time to go in there and grab him for 75 cents on the dollar and see if he returns to form when he comes back. Our final story of the day is Nelson Cruz. He also hurt his wrist. He sprained his wrist. They're calling it day-to-day. The guy has been crushing it. He's hitting .294 with 32 home runs on the season for the Twins. Very nice numbers out of Nelson Cruz. Hopefully, this won't be a major injury, but when you got 30 home runs and you have a sprained wrist, I'm going to talk about it on the show. All right, now let's move over and talk NFL. We're going to talk our NFL extravaganza, and today we're talking about the Minnesota Vikings. All right, so our big three questions. We'll start there. Number one, can the offensive line improve enough to make the defense can the offense in general improve enough to make the defense matter? So last year, the offense finished 18th overall in DVOA, and the defense was 4th, but it still didn't help them get above 8 wins. So what is going on here with this offense? Well, we're going to talk about the offensive line in a minute, but they're trying to get better. I just don't know if the offense is going to do enough to make the defense matter. Now, the defense should remain good. Like I said, they ranked 4th last year in DVOA. What did they lose? They lost a couple safeties and a defensive lineman, and that's pretty much it. Other than that, they're going to return to form. I think they should still be at least a top 10 defense this year. Maybe you'll see some regression. Maybe they finish 6th or 7th among defenses, but are they going to waste that defense again? When you have a top 5 defensive performance, you want to make the playoffs, certainly, right? Will the offense squander another opportunity? Okay, that leads me to my second point, which is my question about the offensive line. So they had offensive line problems all last year. It plagued their season. The group ranked 29th in football last year, despite only allowing 40 sacks. So it's not like Kirk Cousins was getting hit constantly, but this group just in general stunk. So they made a lot of moves on the offensive line this offseason. Who did they add? They added, I think, 3 draft picks to the offensive line. Is that right? Yes, they drafted 3 offensive linemen, and they signed guard Josh Klein as well. They did lose a couple players. Easton and Compton left in free agency. I think this group should improve. how much will they improve? I think if they can get to close to league average, right? Say they're in the top 20 instead of in the bottom 3. I think that can make a huge difference for both Kirk Cousins and the running game as well. Maybe that can help Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison really get going this year. If this offense is just closer to average, offensive line, excuse me. Big question number 3 is how good is Kirk Cousins, right? They made a huge contract for him. They got him out of Washington. He's now their quarterback. They wanted to win the Super Bowl last year, and it just didn't happen, right? They had, I think, 8 wins last season. It's just not good enough. So who is Kirk Cousins? Well, his 2015 and 2016 seasons were great. He was 6th both years in QBR, right? That's fantastic stuff. However, 2017, he was ranked 15th in QBR, and last year he was ranked 14th. So is he more like the 14th or 15th best quarterback in the league, or is he a top 10 quarterback? Well, if the Vikings are going to win the Super Bowl, if they're going to be in the playoffs and competing and having, a real chance to win, Kirk Cousins needs to be a top 10 quarterback. I don't think there's any doubt about it. And that kind of bleeds into our fantasy conversation. Last season, Kirk Cousins was 13th in fantasy quarterbacks last year. Okay, he's being drafted this year as the 20th overall quarterback. I think that is crazy pants. I think that 13th might just be Kirk Cousins' floor as a fantasy quarterback because he has Thielen, who's ranked 13th this season as well. He was the 7th wide receiver last year, and Diggs, who was the 12th wide receiver last year, is now being ranked as the 16th wide receiver in fantasy. So the numbers just don't really make sense to me. How can you have 2 guys who are top 12 wide receivers and then a quarterback who is not, is ranked as number 20? I just don't think it adds up. I think the offensive line is going to be a little bit better. Defense will be a little bit worse. So I think Kirk Cousins, even if he just remains at 13th, that's 7 places above his ADP. So it's certainly a great value, either a very, very low-end starter or a great backup if you do have a risky number 1. Say you took Baker Mayfield, someone like that, as your number 1 starter. He comes with a lot of risk. He's only done it for, a half a season. So grabbing someone like Kirk Cousins, he's typically going undrafted if you're being drafted at QB 20. In your standard leagues, you're only going to have, a standard 12-team league, you're only going to have 18 quarterbacks drafted. So Kirk Cousins is pretty much going undrafted. You can take him with your last pick just to give you some insurance. Or you can take him as your last pick, have him be your only quarterback, and just stream for the rest of the year. Right? If Kirk Cousins is great, awesome. Keep Kirk Cousins. If not, throw him away. He was your last pick anyway. And then just stream quarterbacks. There's so many good quarterbacks this year. We talked about it a million times. So that's one place that you can pick up value. I think both Thielen and Diggs are being under drafted this year. I think they'll both outperform their ADP. Thielen at 13 and Diggs at 16. I think they're both better than that. Dalvin Cook, RB11. I think it's fair. I don't draft him that high because I think the injury risk is too big. He's only played, I believe, 16 games in the last 2 seasons, so that's half the time. I really like the backup, Alexander Mattison. I've been buying him in pretty much not every best ball league, but I own him in like 50% of leagues, which is way too much. I've been drafting Alexander Mattison all the time. He's going as RB64 on ESPN. You can pick him up in the last round as well. You probably don't need to draft him. But he is, if you do own Dalvin Cook, you probably need to have Alexander Mattison because Alexander Mattison, I think he can be 90% of what Dalvin Cook brings you, and you can get him for the last pick, whereas Dalvin Cook, you have to take probably at the end of the second round to be able to pick him up. Okay, that's the fantasy impact, guys. Don't like Kyle Rudolph that much at tight end. He's just, filler at the end of the draft. Yeah, not interested. Vegas has the over-under at 9.5 wins for the Vikings. That seems about right to me. I had the Vikings winning 10 games this season, so certainly not a bettable number as, it's as close as you can get. I do like the Vikings team. I think they're going to be fighting for a playoff spot. If I had to take a side, I'd definitely taking the over, but I'm certainly not going to bet this one as I'm only got a half game of value pulled in there. Okay, so that is the NFL Countdown Extravaganza for today. Tomorrow we'll be back with another team. Not sure which conference. We're going to stay in the NFC, but I'm not sure if we're going to go east or south. We'll let you know tomorrow. We'll leave that as a surprise. You got to tune back in. So if you are watching on the YouTube channel, I would appreciate it if you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Leave us a comment or a question below. If you're listening to the show on a podcast catcher, I'd love a 5-star rating and a review. That would really help us out and let other people find our show. And please check out the sponsor, www.mathrated.com, to pick up an online math course for as little as $9.99. All right, everybody, we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.